What's up, everyone? Carmen here with Pittsburgh White Shorts, coming at you with yet another deck tech. This week I want to talk about Chainsaw Man. I brought this deck to WGP Nationals last weekend and had a great time. If you're familiar with the Japanese White Shorts tournament environment right now, Chainsaw Man is one of the top decks, and for good reason. The deck is unbelievably stable, has a ton of really powerful cards, and does things that really no other deck can do right now. It has a lot of ways to cheat resource generation without interacting with its opponents at all. Notably, last weekend I probably had one of my worst runs of quote-unquote tournament luck. Lots of drawing, lots of climaxes, eating lots and lots of damage, but Chainsaw Man is just so good and just so stable that the set nearly defibrillated me out of every single game and allowed me to play it to 4-2, unfortunately bubbling out of top 16. But the set is super crazy, and I just wanted to talk about the specific deck that I brought, but also just the shell in general, which is the standard StockSoul bar build featuring the Kishibe level 1. Lots of level 0s in this deck, and that's because it's a level 0 combo deck. So just to start us off, I want to talk about that level 0 combo because a lot of the deck is shaped around it. So this is a level 0 spammable top check 3 brainstorm. For every hit that you get, check top 3, add any card to hand, discard a card. So obviously that means that this is really good at looping climaxes, provided that we have enough stock. Thankfully, this card also combos off a StockSoul, and we only need one copy to plus multiple times, because when you slam the StockSoul at the beginning of your attack phase, you sack the StockSoul, which means you're still going to get that global soul to your board, and then you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck and choose up to 2 characters or easy revenge events from among them added to your hand. So every combo you resolve is going to plus 2, as well as, you know, having a small amount of modular mill from your deck. But again, this card is like an infinite mill engine, quote unquote, in and of itself. So even from your first turn, provided that you have the card engraved for the StockSoul and you have enough cards on board to trip this, because you need 2 or more other characters on board, you can start comboing. So that means you can be very aggressive early if you have the openers to facilitate it. Also means that our level 1 lineup is completely open to run whatever we want in the front row, since this card can repeatedly plus from the back row turn after turn, which we will get into when we get to our level 1s. But continuing into our level 0s, the other most important card is this Himeno, which is kind of like the Chloe from Slime. On play, you can discard a character and search your deck for the easy revenge event. And then similarly to Chloe, this card isn't an oversized, but it's going to trade with board just as well, because it is a level 0 bottom deck bomb. The fact that you get to slam 3 or 4, depending on your build, bottom deck bomb level 0s that are 500 power is really nice. Can be an absolute menace for any deck looking to resolve on death or on reverse effects, because your card's going to go off first because you are a turn player with a 500 power card, which means you always get revert. Unlike Chloe, something I really like about this card is that if you are going first, you can freely drop this card and not lose out on the value when you are thinking about answering board, because Chloe got her power on play and then was a 35 to trade with board. This card is just a bomb all the time, so you're not quote unquote punished for dropping this card going first, which is the reason why I personally chose to run 4. If I'm going first, I definitely want to open this card, as it is the strongest turn 0 play that you can possibly make. Other staple of our level 0 lineup is this Makima Riki. You can pay 1, send a character from your waiting room to the bottom of your clock, so you get that good color setting ability from the Riki, which is nice because we do have a dual color level 1. Sometimes does come up. Start your deck for any level 1 or lower character, standard on play plusing Riki effect, but you do get that nice clock setting. And then she has a really nice utility alarm effect. If this card is the top card of your clock at the beginning of your climax phase, choose any of your characters, and during the turn it gains the following effect. On attack, you can look at up to the top 2 cards of your deck and rearrange them. Really nice that you can rearrange mid battle step, even if all you do is give this to the character that you plan on attacking last to maybe see a climax and move it down for a cancel on the following turn. The abilities for you to finesse this specific effect in this deck are endless when you hit level 2 with all of the top checking and manipulating of your top deck, and ways that you can take advantage of rearranging is really nice. The fact that this coincidentally is text staple to our Riki, a card we must run in high high counts to see early, but falls off late game, is very, very nice. We love Rickies with insane utility effects. Plot efficiency has been the name of the game in Power Creep for a long time, and this card is no exception. 2 copies of the Aki Clean Cut, very simple card. We are going to do the quote-unquote standard Ricky for Clean Cut to clean cut our Brainstorm play very often in this deck because we are a level 0 combo deck. This is sort of like our acceleration engine where we slam. If we go first, don't go to level 1, we have our Ricky, we get our Ricky for our clean cut, we have our level 0 combo, slam our climax, attack 3 times for 3-3-3 or 3-2-3 or something like that, and cut our Himeno to the back row to use turn after turn later on. But this does fall off very quickly because, you know, it's just 3K. We don't run a lot of ways to specifically pump power to this card. There are a couple, it can come up, but we are mostly going for the Ricky line. We are playing personally in this deck a 3-2 split to sort of mix the probability of just drawing Ricky in the early game over those early first 1, 2, or 3 turns, as well as having to spend resources to get into it. This was just my happy medium from, again, very limited testing. You could obviously just play 1 clean cut, play 4 Ricky, anything of that lineup, but that is the general idea behind the low count of clean cut, is just to go into that nice easy breezy tri-field play with slamming combo. We also get to play this insane card, this Power. This has a super simple but insane effect where on attack you can choose any of your characters on board and just send it to stock. That character can be a character that already attacked, that character can be a character that's reversed, that character can be a character that is maybe kind of sticky that you're trying to pivot off of, like one of our level 1s, the Kishibe. The amount of insane plays that you can make with a card like this are endless, and I don't really have time to go into all of them here. That was sort of just a general, those kind of 4 examples of just how nutty this card can be, but this is just yet another card in the deck that's helping you quote unquote cheat that resource generation. And it's a level 0, which means you can constantly pick it back up easily off cards like our Rico. This is just a vanilla Rico, this Kobani. Again, lots of utility zeros in this deck because we are a level 0 combo deck. The fact that we can make plays where we will know our zeros will die and then we'll always be able to grab them the following turn to continue looping effects, even looping things like, again, the Power, or picking up a single copy of our Himeno Bomb to rip multiple easy revenges out of deck over successive turns, or just grabbing a Brainstorm again if for some reason we had to attack with our Himeno. Rico is super high value in this deck, just being the most premium costless filter that exists in the game. We don't even care that it's vanilla. This Kovani definitely earns her 2 slots. Moving on, we have the Himeno Brainstorm. This is a plussing Brainstorm. It is a self-tap salvage Brainstorm to go alongside our spammable one. However, we do not use this very often for the Brainstorm effect. We are instead running it because of the first effect where we pay 1 and send the standing character memory. Unfortunately, we cannot Brainstorm and use this effect in the same turn, but we send the standing character to memory, and as long as we're 2 or higher, we can grab a level 2 or higher character from our deck. There are a ton of level 2 or higher characters we are specifically looking for. The Aki Assist, more Aki early plays, or Aki finishers. This card is also a memory condition for our finisher. So the fact that we can just crack this, go grab a card that we are specifically looking for on that turn, and then reshuffle our deck is very, very nice. Being just a crack reshuffle alone is very cool when we have cards like the 2-1 Aki that let us see the top of our deck. If we see something like multiple climaxes and we're just looking to stay at 2 and just want to re-roll our deck state, we can crack this and go grab, you know, another early play healer or a finisher for later, and we're not really punished much for doing so. Getting into our 1-0s, these first 2 1-0s here are kind of a 2-of. They are both climax swaps. We are first running the Makima, which climax swaps from deck. So you pay 1, search your deck for a climax, reveal it, and then you reveal a climax in your hand, put it back in your deck, shuffle your deck, and then at the beginning of your climax phase, you can also give a spot 1000 to any of your characters. That's kind of nice in the early game with our clean cut, but it doesn't come up very often. We're not much of a offensive power deck. This is more so here for the climax swap. And then our second climax swap is this one. This one grabs climaxes from grave, but is costless, but we have to sack one of our other characters. We do have a lot of utility cards that we don't mind sacking. Things like the Ricky, if we're, you know, we're in the early game, we're resolving that, or the Kobani Rico. We can sack that off the board and grab the correct climax for turn, usually a triggered bar switching into a StockSoul. One of the Future Devil, which is a global 5 with the effect where when you play it, when the 2/1 support is played, when this is already on the field, it goes underneath as a marker. Gonna talk about that more when we get to the 2/1. And lastly, this Makima, this card lets you flex your hand into additional stock with her first effect, where on play you can discard 2 characters, look at up to the top 2 cards of your deck, choose a card from among them, up to 1 card from among them, don't have to take anything, and then whatever you don't choose goes into your stock in any order. So you can kind of quote-unquote hand to stock 2 characters from your hand, which can turn into, say, another finisher play or another heal from your early play healer. The fact that this card can be grabbed off our finisher, since our finisher is on play salvage, and then looped with other effects, considering that our finishing hand, because of the on play salvage, maintains its hand size. We can then use that to pivot that extra hand into stock that we can extend into triple finisher turns when we otherwise wouldn't be able to. And then if you end up drawing her in the early game, she can't dig you into climaxes, but she's also a serviceable beater, because when your other character attacks, she gets 1,000 power, letting her swing in for 3/5 in the early game. Getting into our level 1s, again, because our level 0 combo is going to be chilling in the back row and can plus us bear, it leaves our level 1 open for some other cool cards. The cool card that we're going to be playing is a Kishibe, and it's not very cool for our opponents because every other copy of this in the front row is going to make them grow by 2k. That means you got 3 of these in the front row, you got a costless 10k wall in front of your opponent. You cannot play events or backups, so make sure that you resolve all of your easy revenge events first before your Kishibes hit the board, because they are very sticky. You can use on later turns the power to get those Kishibes off your board and into your stock to sort of pivot them off your game plan and into the next part of your deck, which is at level 2, dealing a lot with your early plays and trying to maintain an optimal deck state with all of your top checks. Pretty nasty card, especially when the meta is not running cost bombs or anything like that to sort of contest this. Even when only fielded in duplicate, the fact that you have 2 giant 8k bodies sitting out there is definitely stronger than even I gave it credit for when looking at these lists in the beginning. Many decks out there really do struggle to get even over like 8k or 10k is ridiculous at level 1, and the fact that this card comes down for free. Also very easy to sculpt, you can Ricky for it, and it's pretty easy to pick up off our event, which we'll talk about in a bit here. Other utility level 1 is this Himeno. It's on play if you have 2 or more other characters plus 2k, so a 6/5, and then on the turn that you play it, when it gets reversed, you can pay 1, discard a card, and rest one of your standing characters to salvage 2 characters from your waiting room. So a nice little bit of selection, because we're kind of ripping a lot of cards off the top of our deck with our level 0 combo. Notably, this is a spammable, so if this is chilling in your back row, even if you use the brainstorm effect, you're always going to have a standing card in the back row for Himeno to rest to get that nice selective filter and plus from your waiting room. Because even though you ditch a card because you pick up 2, this is still a +1, like other Yuko profiles that have existed in the past. The event that makes the whole deck tick, the Easy Revenge event, it is very funny that this has a cigarettes effect. You can send the top 2 cards of your deck to your waiting room, choose up to 1 level extra lower character in your waiting room and add it to hand, and then that X is equal to the combined level of the cards milled, and then you send this card to memory. And then when this card's in your memory, when your Aki 3/2 finisher attacks, you can surveil the bottom card of your opponent's deck. So you look at the bottom card of your opponent's deck, leave it there or bin it. The Aki, spoiler alert, is an Icy Tail, so every copy of this that you have in your memory sort of extends the reach of the Aki Icy Tail, and even if you see a climax on one of your early easy revenge checks, if you have multiple, you can do the Icy Tail and then do additional surveils after the fact, which might help a second Aki have a even greater reach on their specific Icy Tail finisher effect. Pretty powerful event, all things considered. Not as strong as something like Mask, since Mask is purely instantaneously selective. This does mill cards, and it can only pick up something of the level or lower that it milled. However, the upside is you do have that mill, and because we process a lot of cards early with stuff like the StockSoul combo, as well as the fact that it's a spammable check 3 brainstorm, which in and of itself processes a lot of cards, means that even in the early turns, our grave is probably going to have the card that we want versus being stuck in our deck. And again, things like that Kishibe, which is only a level 1, pretty easy to pick up and then field in multiples after playing out your events, because again, Ishibe does block us from playing events or backups. Moving into level 2, pretty lean but pretty important. We have one of this 2K to front assist for level 3 and higher, this Aki, but the craziest effects have nothing to do with the power to front. If you have the level 0 Future Devil underneath this is a marker, which again markers itself when you play this card. The devil has to be on the board first. Every clock phase and attack phase, after you have that marker down, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck and put them back in the same order. So before you clock, you can see what's on top, what you're going to draw into. Before you attack, you can see what your triggers are. And even though you can't move them, even though there are other cards that you play that might be able to move them mid-combat step, that is a lot of information, especially when you combine it with the following effect, which is when you trigger a climax, any climax, you can discard a climax from your hand to heal the top card of your clock. This turns your bars into heal triggers. This turns your crit triggers that you trigger off StockSoul, if you have errant bars or extra StockSouls in your hand, also into heal triggers. So seeing a bunch of climaxes on the top of your deck might not even be a bad thing if you have this guy down, which you will. Even at a 1 count of this Aki and a 1 count of the Future Devil, it is very easy when combined with the Easy Revenge event to make sure that you have this online every single game. And again, you're going to want to, not only for that information at the beginning of your turn and at the beginning of your attack phase, but also the ability to randomly scum heals off your plussing bar triggers. This card is absolutely insane and one of the main reasons why Chainsaw Man is such a disgusting deck at level 2, and that peaking information can make it so that your early plays even play for almost completely free every single turn, and you will easily loop over and over and over again, healing, and extending level 2 as long as you can. Since we are a heal at level 2 and extend the game kind of deck, we are going to be playing this free fresh counter, pay 3 overall free fresh, or 2500 power backup. We generate a lot of resources in the attack step that we have some control over, but might be blind stocking cards, might have cards in stock that we might not want there, might be triggering StockSouls or things like that intentionally for side attacks and things of that nature. So having the ability to instantly pay 3 and free fresh our deck to continue our grind game is very, very nice. Also, our finisher package is very, very light in terms of stock, since our finisher is free on attack. So being able to kind of use this effect, whereas other decks can play free fresh counters but are punished for resolving the effect, Chainsaw Man can kind of freely fire this off in the situations it needs to. And sometimes the things you pay out are so good you can make some pretty insane plays where you intentionally trigger cards for sides, and then those things that you left on the board, even though you didn't answer your opponent's board, you left cards down, your opponent then fronts into, and then you can use this counter. Lots of nice cheeky plays like that. Level 3s, firstly, the Aki finisher. This is an on-play salvage, but you only really need 1 copy of this card in hand to grab another copy from grave, which then grabs the 3rd copy from grave, which then grabs whatever other card you need. Maybe the free fresh counter, since this card combo is free and you will generate 3 stock, which is nice. The climax combo is with the bar on attacks. You can mill the bottom 4 cards of your opponent's deck and deal 1 damage for every climax that you see. So it is that nice origami Icy Tail, if you are familiar with Dow, that burns 1 instead of burning 1 big chunk for every climax you see. And it also gains a nice little extra 1000 power. You will notice that this card is only a 3/2 6500, and that's because if you have the Himeno in memory, he gains an additional 4k power and hand encore. So even though Icy Tail is kind of random and Icy Tail doesn't really do guaranteed damage, you're kind of gambling, casinoing the bottom of your opponent's deck, even with those extra Easy Revenge surveils, which means that it's not really an Icy Tail 4, it's an Icy Tail +1 for every single extra event that you have in memory, which is, I know, pretty good. It's still random. So the fact that this card's reach might not be that great is offset by the fact that it is very, very efficient. It sculpts itself. The combo is free. It picks up selective cards from grave, so we can again do things like free fresh counter or pick up heals or things like that. You can easily recur it on a following turn by fielding 3 of these for 6 stock, firing off your combo. If your opponent lives, you've obviously healed down to 3-0 because you're a Chainsaw Man. You can just discard a character, stand these back up, and then go off again, maybe with a triggered bar from the previous turn. It can be really, really disgusting to turning people with a card like this. The fact that it has that hand encore on it for this like super free recollection event. Remember that this Himeno can crack herself, send herself to memory, grab the Aki out of deck, play the Aki, grab an Aki from grave, play another one. 7 stock, even without this thing in memory, you full comboed in a deck that can just kind of like vomit resources out of nowhere. Super, super crazy. Despite not being the quote-unquote best finisher, it's everything else about the card that's good. It's the salvage, it's the hand encore, and all that, and the fact that it's on a bar trigger in the deck that it's in with all these other completely disgusting cards like the 2-1. Another disgusting Aki 3-2 is the early play. It early plays with 2 or more of the event in memory, which are very easy to get there when you have stuff like the Himeno ripping it out as early as turn 0. So you're pretty much always going to have that live. On play, normal heal, gain 1500 power for the turn, so coming down to 10-5, 12-5 in front of your assist. And then when the battle opponent of this reversed, as long as you have a card in your memory, which again, you have to have cards in memory to play this, you reveal the top card of your deck, and if that card's level 1 or higher, you send that card to stock. Remember that we get to look at the order of our top cards with the 2-1 Aki. Remember that we can rearrange if we have the Makima in clock. We have a lot of ways to make sure or hedge our bets that the Aki will hit more often than not, making this a 1 stock heal that then attacks. So this card, if it hits, completely pays for itself. That is a quote-unquote 0 stock heal or close enough to 0 for a deck like Chainsaw Man that again can just vomit resources. Even when you are only playing say 1 heal a turn and you are very low in clock, you can field cards such as the power to pivot off of Kishubes that are still on your board from level 1 to then have more stock to play more of this card the following turn. The gameplay loop is extremely disgusting, very easy to set up, and makes it so that grinding out the level 2 is just so easy and so effective. And lastly, at level 3, we have this Himeno. This card is an absolute terrorist card. It's on play bounce, discard a card if you want to for another bounce, and then at any point during the game you can clock it and discard a card. At the beginning of the climax phase, level down one of your opponent's characters. This is a 1 card triple threat board disruption, one of them at any point in the game, and at level 3 basically means that you never have to deal with a defensive counter provided your opponent's cards aren't hexproof. So unless you're playing against Slime, which by the time Chainsaw Man comes out in English is probably going to see another restriction, you don't have to deal with anything. You just bounce 2 cards on your opponent's front row and then go off with your Akis or whatever the hell else you want to do. Absolutely nuts tech cards, and this card is one of the main reasons this profile existing, even just the top text, is one of the big reasons why I decided not to bring Shauna, a deck tech I did on the previous week, to WGP Nationals, and rightfully so. This card is insane. Here's the list all laid out again, tons of level 0s going into that very directed Kishube level 1 strategy, and then pivoting off that into our heal loop engine with the 2-1 Aki, checking the top cards of our deck in conjunction with the Future Devil to then constantly slam out heals with our 3 Aki, and then every time we trigger a bar, we can then decide, are we going to go to 3 next turn? I'll keep the bar to combo off with my Aki next turn. Or if we're going to think our deck state is good enough to hedge our bets to stay at level 2, discard that bar and heal down again. Despite being a deck that only runs quote-unquote 4 healers, these 4 down here, the amount of times you heal at level 2 is nuts. And the absolute crazy power of all these overloaded level 0s that you have, you get to run 4 bombs for disruption that rip this event out of your deck, that easily loop a 10k wall at level 1 into absolutely what I would call unfair cards like this power that make Chainsaw Man just vomit resources out of nowhere, both cards and stock. Things like the power, things like the Aki generating extra stock. Aki being able to look at the top 3 cards of your deck at the beginning of clock and attack phase feels like cheating. It is so powerful. The fact that you can do even things as simple as how many times have you triple triggered at level 2 when you were super compressed and you just died for it? Well, what if you saw 3 climaxes on top, knew you had that free fresh counter, immediately fired it off, or super out of there, or you saw those 3 climaxes at the top of your deck at the beginning of clock phase because you get to check twice, and you were like, I just want to re-rack. Crack your Himeno, grab a healer, slam it down, you've re-racked your deck state, and you get to try again. The amount of ways you get to sort of hedge your bets on staying at level 2 and kind of deciding when you want to go into your level 3 kind of like multi-turn kill with your Aki, because again, even though Icy Tailing for 7 or so cards sounds really insane, you can still sometimes whiff. Your opponent's climaxes can still sometimes be at the top. It's everything else here in the deck, these completely unfair cards that make this set pretty insane. When I was at WGP Nationals, I had some of my worst in-game luck that I think I've ever had in sort of a tournament event in recent memory, but Chainsaw Man is actually so overloaded, so broken. This set defibrillated me back to life in almost every single game, and like I almost snuck into top 16. There was another Chainsaw Man. Wasn't sure if it was diversity or record. I didn't end up going down round 1. A little bit hard to come back in any tournament in terms of tiebreakers when you go down round 1, even though my round 1 opponent went really far. Not really sure what kept me out that way, but the point is, even when you have bad luck, if your set's so stable like this and has so many overloaded utility effects, it doesn't really matter how bad your luck is, provided that you're making the right plays. You can sort of grind your way back into the game because the set just won't let you die, because it has all the tools available for you to make those plays that you need to hit those breakpoints, make the best plays you can, despite being behind, despite getting, you know, fucked by bad luck or things like that. You can really grind your way back into bad games when you have stuff as like overpowered stuff like Chainsaw Man. So in the close, Chainsaw Man super strong. Gonna come to English. Hopefully Guilty Gear is something super crazy that can stand up against it, because as it comes now, I had a couple people in WGP Nationals ask me, are you excited for Chainsaw Man to come to English? And I said, like, no, I don't think I am. I don't think I want a deck this strong running around, because it's absolutely not. I know this is the 3rd deck tech like this that's come out. I do have other set reviews ready to go. Scheduling Demon has had hands recently. It is really hard during the winter holiday months, end of November and throughout December, for our scene to come together and sort of get that scheduling stuff worked out so that we can get these set reviews out there. But I wanted to make sure we're still coming up with content, so I wanted to get these deck techs out there. And Chainsaw Man, again, is coming to English in February, so it is relevant to both languages. And again, upcoming content, Spy Family, that review is the next one in the chamber, and that will be coming very soon. And with that, Pittsburgh White Schwartz signing off. We will see you all in the next one.